Okay, the roller coaster of writing books. Now, this is very specific to me, and I'm going to go through like some of my journey in writing. First volume of doing immersive research, and currently writing the second and third. And I'm hoping that through explaining some of this, people will be aware of the long-winded, recursive, starting and stopping process that is writing books. At least for me, clearly, some people can just go and write books really easily, right? And as I always say, those people, I don't worry about them; they're fine. But for most of us, doing a lot of writing, it's a very, very long-winded process, full of ups and downs, moments when you think you're on track, moments when you think you're not. I'm very used to that now, and because I've edited 2 books, obviously done my PhD, I've done lots of writing on papers. I'm confident that regardless of some of the moments in this process of writing this book, that's going to be annoying, isn't it? Dangly a little bit. I'll get there. It will happen. This book will come out. My target was to be in April, so I'm recording this at the beginning of Christmas 2011. My target was to be a year after the last book to get the next book out. And that's probably not going to happen now. And it's very easy to kind of like get frustrated with that. The reason it's not going to happen is because I'm going to write a much better book. So let me just start afresh. Let me talk through the process. I've said this in multiple times in the book at the start, and to other people in different times of the podcast. But this book, when I first proposed it, was 2012 after I'd finished my PhD. The idea was to turn part of my thesis into a book about boxing, being immersed in the boxing realm, world, gym, whatever. And almost as soon as I got accepted to write the book, I recognized I shouldn't write the book and that there was a far more important thing. So the first one is writing papers. In the beginning of your career, as far as I'm concerned, and there's other arguments and ways of thinking about this, but writing papers is the most important thing. That's what we get assessed on. That's what ref is about. Not that I really care too much about ref, but some people certainly do. And that's where we kind of demonstrate our academic chops. Can you write papers in decent journals? All right. Can you get some funding in? Yeah. Can you teach a bit? Yeah. Job done. Can you write books? It doesn't really matter so much. So I recognize that. And I also recognize that I could put my papers into a book, whereas you can't really put a book into papers. So it's much more important. One bit of solid advice to everyone that I give is focus on papers at the beginning. What that also means is I had a lot of time to develop as an academic, and I have developed a lot. A lot of people finish their PhDs and they're great and they're ready to go. I certainly wasn't. And my own gaps in knowledge were massive because my kind of education to lead to the process of being an academic was quite poor in various ways. Anyways, when I eventually started writing this book, the first volume came out, and it's very, very different to how I proposed the book. This was not in my original proposal, which was accepted by publishers. Not in it at all. It's a completely different book. But the second book that I'm writing now was going to be the version closely aligned to the version that I had originally proposed in 2011, 2012, whenever it was. And let me finish that first. Let me finish the first book, the process of the first book. I was writing this book and realized it was in 2 parts. The bit that I was trying to hang on to from the original proposal, and this other bit that I've been writing about research methods and all the stuff that I like talking about now. And I remember telling Jenny about this, my wife, and she just said, "You've obviously got 2 books. Why are you stressing about this?" And Alex Channon demonstrated to me that there was a couple of bits that didn't fit in terms of the style of writing, and I recognized it. So that book came out. So it was a re-theorizing and a rewriting process multiple times after a bunch of years of not even doing it, where I'd stopped and started a bunch of times. I wish I'd kept a diary, to be honest, about this book, just so that I could like tell people how ridiculous this thing was. So anyway, eventually, after ages of reading, months and months of reading, reworking the book, that book came out, and I'm very proud of it. There's lots of mistakes in it. Of course, it could be better, of course, but it does exactly what I set it out to do, which is provide people with a start point. It does that really well. Now, if I had pushed on in my original ideas, that book, I would not be proud of it now. I'm almost certain I would not be proud of it. I would be frustrated with it more than anything else. And the redevelopment of that book, the first version, not just the first version that I proposed, but the first version that I rewrote in whenever it was 2020, I wouldn't have been happy with that. But I am happy with this. That long-term process means I've got a book that, at least for now and for the next few years, I'm going to be very happy with. Now, a similar thing has happened with the second book. So I'm writing volume 2. I'm kind of writing volume 3 at the minute, but that's kind of separate. This was volume 2. Yeah, I've actually started using it for notes because it's been out on my desk for so long. Because I basically finished it. And if you know what a thesis looks like or a book looks like, it's pretty much it. 7 chapters, and then I added a few extra bits. And that little bit is the problem. I added a few extra bits. And unbeknownst to me at the time, what I was adding was actually the most important bits. What I was adding was the stuff that I understand now is the contribution. What was there was the residue of the book that I presented to the publishers in 2012. And I thought I could still pull it together. Path of Least Resistance. I've got this work done. It's basically done. It's been done for a while. Here we go. I'll tie it up. I'll be finished by January. I'll have the summer off. Amazing. I'll sell this book, have the summer off. And over the last couple of months, as I've carried on reading around stuff that's far more interesting, far more impactful, and far more important, and making notes and writing chapters on that, I've recognized that actually it's a completely different book. So that book that I've just shown you, which is I would say that's probably 80 to 85% finished. It needed proofreading, it needed linking together, but it was pretty much finished. That's now in the bin. I have to laugh at myself when I say that. I've written a book and it's going in the bin. And I'm happy about it. Now, this process has happened over the course of a couple of months. It's only yesterday that I fully made that decision. And I replanned it. I've got my new plan out in front of me. And what I've got now is a contribution which I know aligns much better with this, aligns much better with what I think, aligns much better with where my career is going and how I want to help people who read the book. So what that process has actually felt like is splitting up from a difficult relationship. So that we've all been, hopefully you've all, well, I don't know. Most of us have been through it, or at least we know what it's like to have gone through it. And you're in this relationship. It's a difficult relationship. Possibly there's reasons to stay together, but you know it's wrong. That's what this book was to me. This book, I was holding on to this book because it was basically done. This was my the girlfriend that I shouldn't be with book. And it was very, very difficult to come to that stage where I was like, no, I've got to start again. But start again I have. And yesterday I spent the day, I looked like I had a little bit of a bad sleep. Yeah, I did. I had bad sleep because I was thinking about this a lot. And eventually I accepted that was it. End of the relationship. That book is now done. So I'm actually going to throw that book in the bin. It's a terrible waste of paper. It will get recycled, but that book now goes in the bin. There will be some bits I can salvage from it, but not actually that much. The new stuff that I've written is where this is going. Far more happy with it. The sun actually came out today, literally and metaphorically for me. We've had all this horrible rain and now it's gone sunny, and that's how this has felt for me. The absolute roller coaster, an emotional roller coaster. But now I've got a plan, and now I know where I've got to go, what I've got to do, what bits I've got to pull out. I'm probably going to give it a rest now because we're getting close to Christmas and I've got some other bits I've got to write first, a couple of book chapters I've got to do for someone else. But once they're done, I get back to my plan. I'll do a bit of reading for it now, take a little bit of a step back, and then I'll start building towards it again. Knowing that as well, the roller coaster starts again. Just because I've had this big moment of up and down doesn't mean to say that this isn't going to come again. Most likely will. So I'll be back on this probably in Feb, and it'll be go almost all of my time except for dissertation supervision and my PhD students. All of my time will go into this. I'll probably get into some quite obsessive relationships with it at times, where I'll be staying up late working on it while drinking a bottle of wine like I tend to do. But eventually it will come together. And I know that that big step that I've taken yesterday and today will fundamentally make this a much better contribution, which in the end I'll be much happier with. And if I hadn't have done this, I would have published that book or got closer to it and then realized, and if I'd published it, I wouldn't have been happy with it. I'm almost certain of that. So anyway, just a discussion about the roller coaster, the process, the ups and downs, the fact that for most people, this idea of writing long-winded documents is a nightmare, but in the end, ultimately satisfying. creative, enjoyable. I've enjoyed the fact that I've gone through this moment and kind of had to reassess myself and come back to it. So hopefully that helps other people. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. If you have any questions or comments, just drop me a note. Happy to chat over this. If you're having similar processes, just drop me a DM. I'm happy to chat about it. All right, cheers.